Welcome to the terribly named Okay Not Okay podcast. I am the SportsZu, and first off, spoiler alert, we have to talk a little bit about tonight's SmackDown. That hasn't yet happened, but of course was filmed last Friday right after last week's SmackDown. So yeah, there are some things on the internet, so we need to use those to help us make the best predictions for Crown Jewel. So let's get into that. First, with our normal recap for the last PLE, in this case it was Bad Blood, and we were 4-1 in all matches, taking our loss with the Bloodline winning at plus 300. Of course, they did not win. Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes got the win, and I had a whole different video on that called Bad Booking. And if you want to see that, and you should, it was a great video, check that one out below in the description. It will be linked there. And we will come back to talking about that a little bit more. And I want to also say we are slightly fortunate that Rhea Ripley won by disqualification when Raquel Rodriguez attacked her during the match. I thought Rhea was going to win the championship, but it wasn't meant to be. But at least she got the win, and at plus 400 odds. That is rather juicy, and we like getting that win no matter how it was attained. So for props, we were also 2-1 on those. We lost the Jimmy Uso returning bet. I said no, he was not going to return, and there is absolutely nothing anyone can say or do to make me think that that was a good decision, because as the doc has said over and over and over again, Roman Reigns has needed help to win his last 11 championship matches during his 1,316-day reign. So now he also looks like he needs help to win a pretty inconsequential tag match. That, my friends, is just simply bad. 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 But for us, at least, that one was at plus 200, so it didn't cost you much there if you went with us on that one. Now, overall, that makes us 6-2 for Bad Blood, which is 75%. Now, when we break it out, since the Backlash pay-per-view, when we started doing the betting podcast, we are 31-6 for picks to win and 28-9 in picks to bet. And we are also 16-4 in all prop bets. If you put that all together, we are 47-10 for picks to win, which is 82.5%. And if we go picks to bet, that makes us 44-13, which is still a really good 77.2%. So keep coming here if you want the best WWE betting advice. So next, we also like to talk about the history of the PLEs to see if we can gain any insight there. And so, Crown Jewel, this is the 6th Crown Jewel and the 12th overall PLE in Saudi Arabia. Most recently, in May, we had King and Queen of the Ring. And I think it's really important to note there that Gunther and Nia Jax were the King and Queen of the Ring at that pay-per-view. So we have to admit that it's really unlikely that WWE is just going to go right back to that well and have both Gunther and Nia win the Crown Jewel championships. So let's keep that in mind for our picks a little bit later. And we like to talk about those title changes as well. At King and Queen in the Ring, we had one of those. It was Liv Morgan defeating Becky Lynch for that World Women's Championship. And at the last 3 Crown Jewels in 2023, we had one title change with Logan Paul defeating Rey Mysterio for the US title. In 2022, we had Sky and Kai defeating Alexa Bliss and Asuka for the Women's Tag Team Championships. And in 2021, there were no title changes. So I guess we don't always have a title change, but yet again, as we often see, one title change seems to be a pretty good way to go on these. And as we will talk about later, when we see a women's tag team match, we really have to look at the numbers. But first, let's get it started with our non-title matches, and we will start with what seems to be blatantly obvious. It's Kevin Owens at minus 600 or 85.71% implied probability, taking on Randy Orton at plus 350, which is a 22.22% implied probability. Triple H and Randy Orton talked it out on SmackDown, with Triple H saying just how dangerous this version of Kevin Owens will be, and that he was just trying to protect Orton from Owens instead of the reverse, which was what Randy Orton had thought. So of course, that means we simply have to see just how dangerous KO can be. So the story here is pretty simple. KO's gotta beat Orton, and then he's gotta move right on back to Cody Rhodes for a championship match. Easy one here, you gotta take Kevin Owens, and we also have to get Randy Orton to be injured at the end of the match, so he kind of goes away for just a little bit, and then when he comes back, maybe he will also have a change of heart, and that will set up a likely Rhodes versus Orton championship match at a later date, and most likely at the Royal Rumble. So Kevin Owens is our pick to win and pick to bet at minus 600. Secondly, we have Big Bronson Reed at minus 175 for a 63.64% implied probability against the finally returning Seth freaking Rollins at plus 135 for a 42.55% implied probability. Now, of course, if this were just a one-off match, it would be a pretty safe bet to think that Seth Rollins would win this one, as he is obviously just one of the best that there is, and clearly the fan favorite here, and he's been through a lot of adversity, and it looks like he even might be injured yet again after going through those tables on the most recent Monday Night Raw. But there's gonna be more than one match here, right? Come on, that would just be way too quick to put Bronson Reed in such a prominent spot and then just have him fade away. I don't think that's what we're gonna get here. We're really trying to build up Reed into something. So I think that is what we have to do here. And so we need another match for Reed against Rollins later, so that when we play up those Rollins injuries, he's got to tap more into that monster side inside of him that he said he hadn't felt in a long time. So that's really our story here. A change in Seth Rollins that's going to lead to him eventually overcoming Bronson Reed and then moving on to the World Heavyweight Championship, which I hope works out for him, because that would go with my prediction of Seth Rollins defeating Gunther on the very first episode of Raw on Netflix, and then facing CM Punk at WrestleMania for the title. But for today, it's an easy one. Big Bronson Reed minus 175 is our pick to bet and to win. And in our third non-title match, we have the pretty late edition of the Bloodline, the new version, versus the Bloodline, the old version. And we don't know exactly what combination of the new Bloodline it will be. It could be any of the four current members. They are at minus 700 for an 87.5% implied probability. And then, of course, Roman Reigns, Jimmy Uso, and now the returning Jey Uso, where it seems like they just might be on board on this week's SmackDown that has not yet aired. They're going to come back together and be a good unit as the OG Bloodline, and they are at plus 400 for just a 20% implied probability. So yeah, I want to go right back to that bad booking video that I had just a couple weeks ago. Every fiber in my being really wants to pick the new Bloodline to win this one, because we've got Survivor Series coming up next. Everybody in the world knows that it's going to be the new Bloodline versus the OG Bloodline in War Games at Survivor Series. So it only stands to reason that the bad guys are going to win this very much less inconsequential match. So when we finally get to the big one at Survivor Series, it would be the good guys, or I guess that would be the OG Bloodline picking up the win, even though the doc would certainly not want to hear that. But as I said in that video, that is just not how this works. I guess I need to learn from my prior mistakes here and just go with it against how I want to do it. So maybe it's just that the new Bloodline beats up the old Bloodline throughout the month and looks strong, but then when we finally get to the match, they lose. So I think that's what we've got to do here now as well. But how could that possibly happen? They are outnumbered 4-on-3 right now. Well, yep. You gotta start feeling oozy here, folks. It is Sami Zayn. He talked to Jey Uso and things didn't go well. And then Jimmy and Jey both saw Sami talking to Sikoa in the parking lot. So I think it stands to reason that Sami's gonna make an appearance here because he is certainly the fan favorite of anyone at Crown Jewel, so you have to think there is no way that Sami Zayn is not going to show up here. Book it, guaranteed, money in the bank. If there were a prop asking you about Sami Zayn, any sort of line you could put, I would say yes to Zayn appearing. So yeah, Sami Zayn's gonna be there. He's going to make it look like he's gonna help out Solo, but at the last second, he's gonna turn on Solo, and somehow that will not be a disqualification, so then the old Bloodline will find a way to get a win after that distraction. So just like our really juicy pick with Rhea at plus 400 at Bad Blood, we're going to it again, plus 400. Roman Reigns, Jey Uso, Jimmy Uso, that is your pick to win and pick to bet. All right, next let's go to our title matches, and we'll start with the triple threat match for the United States Championship. We have your champion, LA Knight, at minus 250 for a 71.43% implied probability, taking on Andrade at plus 185 for 35.09%, and Carmelo Hayes at plus 700 for 12.50%. So your standard logic in triple threat title match booking, it is that the champion retains. I don't really see a reason to go against this. LA Knight has been a great fighting champion. He's already had 4 title defenses already, and this is his first chance on a PLE as the champion. It's only been 3 months, and we know we like long title reigns nowadays. There's just no reason to stop that momentum yet. So LA Knight, really strong pick here, but let's talk about the other guys really quickly. Andrade, he's been amazing. He is clearly the best wrestler out of pretty much anyone in the entire WWE as of skill. That of course doesn't always translate the wins, and we know he's got the speed championships. He doesn't need to win this one right now, so I'm honestly a little surprised he is the number 2 favorite on this one. But yeah, let's keep this party rolling. I don't think he's gonna do it just yet. So Carmelo Hayes is your third choice. I like him a lot as a flyer pick at plus 700. So I guess I want to bring up the elephant in the room briefly. There was a question on the post show at Bad Blood saying that there were no black male wrestlers on a PLE for 3 straight PLEs. So thank goodness we have Carmelo Hayes on this one. So does that change your booking to hot shot him into a title? Man, I hope not. I hope not. Carmelo has been pretty good of late. He's obviously not looking as good as Andrade is looking, but Hayes has picked up 3 wins in their best of 7 series. So Carmelo certainly would be a very reasonable pick to be the champion. And in fact, I think he's gonna get there pretty soon before WrestleMania at some point. But come on, we had a really big bummer of a Game 7 between Andrade and Carmelo Hayes. So to me, the best thing we can do here is have those two really get angry at each other and take their eyes off of the prize, allowing LA Knight to slip on in there and steal the victory from them so that Andrade and Hayes can get Game 7 Part 2. Who knew that was such a thing? I guess it would be like a rain out in Game 7 of the World Series that obviously we did not quite need this time around. So that makes it the obvious pick, LA Knight minus 250. He is our pick to win and our pick to bet. And in our other title match, we have a fatal 4-way match for the Women's Tag Team Championship. It is your champions Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair as the overwhelming favorites at minus 1,500 for a 93.75% implied probability. Whew, that is a big number, folks, especially with three other teams out there. Second, we have Chelsea Green and Piper Niven. They're at plus 510 for a 16.39% implied probability, followed by Damage Control's Kairi Sane and Io Sky, plus 850 for a 10.53%. And lastly, NXT's Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson. They're at plus 900 for a 10% implied probability. So we have talked about it in great length in our prior betting videos about the women's tag team title matches that are held on international soil. And so, after Bash in Berlin, when Jade and Bianca regained the titles, we now have 5 straight international PLEs where the title has changed hands in the women's tag team title matches when they are on the main card. Of course, we have to put a net qualifier there. And that includes Crown Jewel in 2022. Like we said, it was Sky and Kai. So can Io do this yet again? Well, spoiler alert, again, on SmackDown there was a fatal 4-way where one member of these 4 teams battled each other for reasons. Well, nonetheless, in the end, Io Sky landed that over the moonsault on Bianca Belair to get the win. And surprisingly, it was a clean win. So the finish was that Bianca hit a KOD on Lash, but before Bianca could get up, Io was ready and landed that over the moonsault on Bianca to get the win, of all people. So that gives Io 2 straight wins over Bianca now. That's interesting. But will Io and Kairi pull this one out just like Io and Dakota did at Crown Jewel? You know, I really prefer to not pick the winner of the most recent confrontation, whether it be some sort of brawl or in an official match. So this case, Io winning, they probably would have been my pick here today if it weren't for that spoilered SmackDown. So I'm gonna stay away from Damage Control here. So who else is there? Chelsea and Piper. The doc has said a bunch of times May 31st was their last tag team title match of any sort. They're not even trying. So it really seems to be a tough haul to get them to be the winners. And I know it's been a while, Chelsea is amazing, but they've already been tag team champs together before. Granted, they didn't really win them together. Piper just kind of grabbed that second title belt. But still, they were tag team champions before, so that wouldn't really be breaking any new ground here. We don't need them to win it right now, so let's stay away from them. And I think Lash and Jakara are really interesting here. So, you know, the key thing here is that no one from NXT has ever won the Women's Tag Team Championships since those titles started back in February of 2019 with the Boss and Hug Connection. So what do we say here? Do we go with the champs to buck the trend of a new tag team champion on PLEs, or do we pick something that has simply never happened before? Tough one here, tough one. So obviously I like really long odds at plus 900. So do they have better than a 10% chance to win? Yeah, I really think they do. And here's the difference from all of the previous 5 years. Lash and Jakara have been mainstays on the main roster for the last month since they showed up to face Jade and Bianca for the titles 2-on-2. And even we've had the main roster stars go to NXT over that last month. So they've just been on our TVs. We've been getting to know them over all of that time. Previously, the tag titles with the women have just been one-off events, mostly on NXT. So this is feeling a little bit different. Also, NXT on the CW is still pretty new, so they still want to hype things up. And it would really be a great thing for them to have those women's tag team championships on NXT for at least a little while and get those main roster stars to come to the CW on a weekly basis. And on the flip side of that, well, the main roster right now, we've got just 2-hour shows on both Raw and SmackDown. So we're down a whole hour here. If we just kind of push the Women's Tag Team Championships off to NXT for just a little bit. We really love our women's wrestling. Let's keep them there most of the time. But maybe just until January when we get to Netflix, I think it might be a good idea to get those tag team titles to NXT. If not now, then when? This seems like the best moment ever to do that while we are lacking our TV time for Monday Night Raw. So let's do it. We're going to call an upset pick here for our pick to bet with Lash and Jakara. But if it were me, I personally still think it's a little bit too soon to pull the trigger here for Jade and Bianca having things go wrong. So on this spoilered SmackDown, nothing went wrong that I could tell. We didn't get a whole match on YouTube to watch it, but it didn't look like there was any animosity brewing between Jade and Bianca, so I think we might get one more PLE out of it officially. So at minus 1500, it's just too rich for me, but I think the best booking here is still one more time Jade and Bianca. So we're gonna split this one. I know no one likes to see the splits, but my pick to win will be Jade and Bianca, but due to these terrible odds and really a fresh opportunity, the pick to bet is Lash and Jakara. And with that, let's go to our 2 Crown Jewel Championship matches. So I think the Crown Jewel Championships were a terrible idea, and I really hate seeing them, and I also really hate that I could not even anticipate them when we were doing Betting Bad Blood. But let's leave all that aside and let's get to the Women's Crown Jewel Championship match between Nia Jax and Liv Morgan. Nia is your favorite at minus 200 for a 66.67% implied probability, while Liv is plus 150 for a 40% implied probability. And I'm going to say that for both of these matches, we cannot have a repeat of King and Queen of the Ring. So let's keep that in mind and let's get to it. First, for betting purposes, we really have to note that if this match becomes a triple threat match for Tiffany Stratton cashing in during the match, then the bet would be voided. So for our betting purposes, we can really avoid thinking of that scenario. Now, I want to say, however, that is good news because that would be 1, very difficult to figure out, and 2, it lets us cheer for that scenario because that is the coolest and best scenario. How great is that going to be when that happens and Tiffy cashes in and is holding 2 belts at the end of the match because she is going to cash in on Nia Jax during that match to become both the WWE Women's Champion and the Crown Jewel Champion. However, let's take that out here. We have to not think about that because that happening does not matter to us. We need to focus on Nia versus Liv only because that's the only thing that's going to make this bet even matter. So for this bet to even matter, we need Tiffy to either not cash in at all or wait for the match to end and then cash in. So those are the 2 scenarios that we need to care about. So let's rip that out of our head and let's think about the 2 regular scenarios here. So first, let's do our spoiler alert finish for the SmackDown that has not yet happened. We had Liv and Nia have their face-to-face in the middle of the ring, just like we had for Gunther and Cody last week. And of course, Tiffy joined that encounter and she said she wasn't sure who she's going to cash in yet. So I think there's a pretty good chance she's going to cash in on somebody, but who is it going to be? Well, nonetheless, that led to a match between Tiffy and Liv. Interesting. So that match maybe didn't matter so much, except if maybe Tiffy's cashing in on Liv, why would they throw away that match right now? So, I think we might not be seeing that match anytime soon. Well, anyways, the result doesn't matter very much, but Liv did get a win with a roll-up, grabbing the old tights, and of course some shenanigans by Dom and Raquel, so that didn't matter. But then Nia came out to save Tiffy post-match, and she ended things with an annihilator on Liv. So that Nia is the one standing strong at the end of the segment. That, of course, we don't like to go for that if we can avoid that scenario. So it makes the most sense here to me that we will indeed see Nia Jax lose at Crown Jewel. And then, of course, this is Tiffy's moment. She would then cash in on Nia at the end of the match. Now, I will have to admit, I think the funniest scenario would again be for Nia to actually win with that annihilator. She does that same funny gesture like she did a couple of weeks ago, pointing to Tiffy, say, hey, there's Liv on the ground right now, now's your moment. But this time, instead of trying to cash in, she would then turn on Nia, knock her down with a couple shots with the briefcase, then cash in and defeat Nia. So that is a possibility. That's the one thing we're worried about. But it would be too fun, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. Nia, we're going to play this one straight up. Just a good old-fashioned turn. We think Nia will lose, and she'll still be kind of knocked out. And Liv will be the one going back with 2 championship belts, which makes sense because it seems that the Judgment Day just wants to keep racking up those titles now that we have Dom looking forward to trying to win a World Heavyweight Championship. So seeing Liv with another belt might just make Finn Balor a little bit more jealous going forward. So there you have it. Our pick to win and pick to bet for this scenario is indeed Liv Morgan. And we have to say we're really sad that there were no prop bets here. Having Tiffy cash in, yes or no, that really would be a perfect bet to have for us this time. But they didn't do it. Maybe they thought it was too obvious, unlike at Bad Blood last month when it was an option. And lastly, let's go to the men's side. We have Gunther at minus 500, 83.33%, and Cody Rhodes plus 300 for a 25% implied probability. We'll say it one more time. We cannot have a repeat of King of the Ring. So we don't really want to pick Gunther if we don't have to. And let's do our spoiler alert one more time because we had a tag team match between Imperium and Rhodes and Orton teaming up. And again, the match outcome didn't matter that much, but Cody Rhodes did secure the win with a crossroads on Ludwig Kaiser. But KO then came out with a steel chair and used it on Randy Orton. So then Cody looked and turned around and tried to help, but Gunther came in and choked out Rhodes until they were finally separated by security guards and WWE officials. So again, in the end, what matters is that Gunther was the one standing tall. So that's another knock against picking Gunther this time. But as for these two competitors themselves, well, they're obviously amazing in the ring, and they are the most protected by the WWE as they are both 12-1 in one-on-one matches this year. Now, as we think about previous iterations of champion versus champion matches, Cody Rhodes said it himself that usually they find a way to have some shenanigans in the match, so something happens so that both champions remain strong. But he said that's not going to happen here. Can we believe it? I don't know. So what could happen to Gunther? Well, of course, he could get helped by Ludwig Kaiser and have Kaiser take out Cody Rhodes somehow. But I guess now, after Monday Night Raw, it is not impossible for the Judgment Day to go after Gunther. Dom is certainly gonna be there for Liv, right? So now that he's got his eye on the World Heavyweight Championship prize, maybe he wants to fire a first shot at Gunther. So let's keep that one in the back of our mind. Then for Cody, of course, his one remaining beat-up buddy friend is Randy Orton, but he's probably going to lose, and it is pretty likely he'll also be injured, so he won't be in any sort of shape to even help Rhodes by the end of the night. So yeah, KO, pretty good likelihood he'll be wanting some revenge if he's able to, and I assume he will be able to. So I think there's a good chance that he might go after Rhodes to set up a match for Survivor Series, where of course Cody Rhodes is going to have a championship match, and KO is obviously the only logical competitor. Now, unlike everyone else on the roster, we see Gunther win time after time after time again with those chokeouts, and everyone's hands get raised and dropped, and they're out, and the ref has to stop the match, and Cody Rhodes is simply not going to lose like that right now. Right now, he's just booked way too strongly. That's not happening, especially while he's the champion. No way. Is it possible Gunther's going to hit about 5 straight power bombs to win? It's possible, but man, if he has to win by a roll-up, that would be an ugly look. So it's really hard to get Gunther to kind of have something that looks right as a win for him in this scenario, especially if there aren't shenanigans. So what I really like to see here is Cody Rhodes will overcome Ludwig Kaiser somehow, and he will find a way to hit those 3 straight crossroads, which if that's the only way Gunther can lose, he still looks pretty strong by that, sure, so not bad. Then of course, Saudi Arabia loves their pomp and circumstance, so we're gonna have an amazing Crown Jewel Championship ceremony to give to Cody Rhodes, winning this humongous and ridiculous belt, and then, only then, to ruin that ceremony, it will be Kevin Owens coming out to end the show. Hopefully the Bloodline better not end the show. To end the show and get us set up for Survivor Series. So, in the end, we're going to go with another underdog pick here, Cody Rhodes. It's amazing. We actually get him as an underdog in a one-on-one match. Fantastic. We love that. That's going to give us a lot of money in the bank. 25% implied probability. That is so low for Cody Rhodes. Yeah. Rhodes is our pick to win and pick to bet. So there you have it. You can see our picks here for the 7 matches, and like I said, there are no props this time around, and be sure to remember, please do not bet anything that you cannot afford to lose. But I'm sure Crown Jewel will be fun just to watch, and we'll see if these picks are right. And what you should also see, if you haven't yet, is to go back and check out the Doc's video on Jey Uso in the Bloodline, and then also about Kevin Owens and his attacks on Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton. I'm the SportsZu, and this has been the OK Not OK podcast.